starting an all-new series called Kings and Kingdoms. What we're going to be doing is, the tagline of the series is Leading Like David. And what we're going to be doing is going through the life of David, hitting on some of the big highlights of his life and how those apply to us today. And here's the thing. Some of you are like, I'm not a leader, Caleb. What are you talking about? We're all leaders in some way in our lives. We lead in different ways, in different spheres of our lives. And so we want to encourage you all today that you're leaders. And so this series is going to be all about really practical. It's going to be very practical, down-to-earth approach to helping you lead in all the different aspects and avenues of your life. And so I'm super excited today. We're kicking it off looking at 1 Samuel chapter 16. And it's going to be a great time together. But as you can see, part one, and every week is going to be a leader's something, but this week, part one is a leader's heart. And so we're going to be looking at the heart. How many know that we have to protect our hearts? We got to really be careful with our hearts. Now, I grew up here in Sacramento boy, born and raised. And I have been a diehard Kings fan since I was a child. Do we have any Kings fans in the house? All right, most of you. And so, most of you, not all of you. I know there's a few Lakers fans in here, and we'll pray for you that Jesus will save you. But a few of you, yeah. So when I was a kid, man, growing up, I grew up in the Mitch Richmond, Wayman Tisdale, Spud Webb, Kenny Smith days, right? Like, this is when I started watching the Kings. I would go to games often with my dad, and we were horrible, weren't we? I mean, always lost, never made the playoffs, and in the late 90s, something happened. A shift took place. We brought in Chris Webber, and they built this amazing team around him. I mean, I'm talking about Vlade Divac, right? Peja Stojakovic, Mike Bibby, yes. We had the Jay Will there for a little bit, which I was a big Jay Will fan, but Mike Bibby was even better. And so, man, things went nuts here in Sacramento, didn't it? I mean, this city was hopping, we was buzzing, we were so stoked, and we started going to the playoffs. So I remember the first couple years in the playoffs, we lost to the Jazz, and then we kind of got over that hump, started beating the mailman, right? John Stockton, them short shorts. I wasn't down with that, but we started beating them, and then now we're talking about, we win the Pacific Division for a couple of years in a row, and we're going to the Western Conference Finals. And who do we face? Of course, the Los Angeles Lakers, right? Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, Robert Horry. And so I remember the one series that I thought our time had come, but I was still guarded, right? I was still guarding my heart because all I'd known my whole life was heartbreak and loss. And so I remember we're up 2-1 in Los Angeles, and we are leading this whole game. And it comes down to the final seconds. We're up by, 2 points. And I think Kobe drove and put up a brick as usual. And I'm kidding. I know we got some Kobe fans in here. Puts up a brick. And Vlade Divac does something that haunts me to this day. Okay? Vlade Divac jumps up and thinking the time's almost out. And he swats the ball back like towards half court, like as hard as he can, thinking the time will expire. The only problem was Robert Horry was standing there. And the ball came right to Robert Horry, and he hit the shot. Big Shot Bob, they called him, right? Robert Horry. And he puts it up, and there's this, have you guys seen the clip? Some of you that remember this, you know what I'm talking. If you're not a basketball fan, you don't know what I'm talking about, just stick with me for a minute, all right? I still see this, like it haunts me. It's in my dreams, I'm serious. This shot of like the Staples Center from the corner, and you can see Robert Horry really small, put up this shot, and the place erupts and jumps on their feet, and it goes from us being up 3-1, he drains this 3, to the series tied 2-2, and then we go to game 7. What happens? The refs cheat, right, of course, for the Lakers, and call all kinds of fouls, and we lose as usual, okay? But here's the thing. It was a heartbreaking moment for me. It still is. I'm not bitter at all, as you can tell. But going into it, I was still very guarded. I was guarding my heart as it related to the Kings because I knew that time and time again, they let me down, right? Time and time again, they let me down. And once again, it took place. And now we have our new arena coming. You guys see it? It looks nuts right now. It's like being constructed, and we're going to have a sick downtown arena, but I don't know. I'm still guarding my heart if we're ever going to be winners again. But Proverbs 4:23 in the New Living Translation says this: guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. Your heart determines the course of your life. Your heart determines your destiny. And so today I want to talk to you about a leader's heart, and I want to give you 5 ways to protect your heart as we look at the life of David. And more specifically, we're going to be focusing a little more today on Samuel, because Samuel here comes to anoint the new king. So here we go, 1 Samuel chapter 16. I'm going to read a few verses, verse 1 through 13. You can follow along online, and if you have your Bibles, open them there. It says this, "The Lord said to Samuel, how long will you grieve over Saul, since I have rejected him from being king over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and go. I will send you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided for myself a king among his sons." So let me pause. The nation of Israel, they had came into the promised land. They'd been led for generations by God, right? He was their king. And then Samuel, as he's the prophet speaking for God to this nation, they start asking him and saying, we want to be like everyone else. We want to be like all the other nations. We want a human king. We want a man to be our king. And so Samuel says to them, you don't want a king. And he tells them all the reasons they don't want a king. He's going to take advantage of you. There'll be evil kings and all these kinds of things. But they say, no, we want a king. And so God finally says, give them a king. He tells Samuel, go ahead and do it, which is a little side note, and this isn't really a part of my sermon, but sometimes God gives us the things we ask for, even though they may not be what's best for us. And then often what we do is he gives us the things we ask for, and then we go, God, why has this happened to me? And then we want to blame him, and he's saying, hey, I just gave you what you wanted. And so we have to be careful what we ask for, don't we? And be wise in what we ask God for. But here's the thing, so Samuel's like, fine, I'll get you your king. So they anoint Saul king. And Saul, he's good looking. He's tall. He's everything you'd ever want in a king. He's courageous, heroic, all these kinds of things. But then Saul starts to go against God. He disobeys God time and time again. He sacrifices when only the prophet's supposed to do that. He starts to even go to other priestesses and worship other gods and idols. And so finally God says, that's it. I'm done with Saul. It's time to anoint a new king, which brings us to this portion of the scripture. So verse number 2, and Samuel said, how can I go? If Saul hears it, he will kill me. And the Lord said, take a heifer with you and say, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. And invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what you shall do. And you shall anoint for me him whom I declare to you. Samuel did what the Lord commanded and came to Bethlehem. The elders of the city came to meet him trembling and said, do you come peaceably? And he said, peaceably I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice. And he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. When they came, he looked on Eliab and thought, surely the Lord's anointed is before him. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. And here's one of the most famous passages of scripture in the Bible. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. Then Jesse called Abinadab and made him pass before Samuel. And he said, neither has the Lord chosen this one. Then Jesse made Shammah pass by, and he said, neither has the Lord chosen this one. And Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. And Samuel said to Jesse, the Lord has not chosen these. Then Samuel said to Jesse, are all your sons here? And he said, there remains yet the youngest, but behold, he is keeping the sheep. And Samuel said to Jesse, send and get him, for we will not sit down till he comes here. And he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy and had beautiful eyes and was handsome. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is he. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon David from that day forward. And Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. Let's pray. Would you bow your heads with me? Jesus, thank you for your word. I pray that you would challenge us, that we would learn to guard our hearts, that our hearts would be ones that are after you, and that we would be raised up today, even as leaders in all the different places that you've called us to. We love you, Jesus, and it's in your name we pray. Amen. All right, so here's what I want to do. 5 ways, 5 real quick practical ways to protect your heart so that you can have a leader's heart. Number 1 is to listen to what God is telling you to let go of. We need to let go of some things, and we need to stop holding on to that which God is calling you to release. So listen to me. I want to go back to this verse of verse 1, and Samuel, or God says to Samuel, he says, Samuel, how long are you going to mourn for Saul? How long? It's time for you to get up and anoint a new king. So what Samuel was doing was he didn't want to let go. I mean, this was the first king of Israel. Saul was the first king. It was the king that he had anointed over Israel. But Saul had turned his back from God. He turned away from God. He was living wrong. He wasn't living according to God's will, according to his word. He wasn't following what Samuel would tell him to do. He wasn't following what God would tell him to do. And so finally God says, I'm done with you, Saul. And Samuel, you need to be done with him too. But Samuel doesn't want to let go, does he? And Saul says, or God says, how long? How long are you going to mourn? It's time to move on because I have something better than what we are in right now. And so how does this apply for you and I today? Some of you are holding on to that which God is telling you to release. You're holding on to things. And let me tell you, letting go can be painful, can't it be? It can be painful. It can even be heartbreaking. But the only way to move on to the greater things that God has for you is to let go of the lesser things that are holding you back. And some of us, we get so comfortable in the lesser things. It's all we know. It's our comfort zone that we don't want to let go because we know if we let go, then it'll take us to somewhere we've never been. And going to somewhere we've never been is always scary, isn't it? Attaching ourselves to something new is always scary. Some of you are here at church for the first time and you're going, I'm terrified to be here. This may be uncomfortable for you. We're so glad you're here. But I want to tell you right now that God has brought you here because he has greater things for you. And he wanted you here. Some of you are holding on to things that you need to let go of. I've held on to things that I've needed to let go of. Some of you are holding on to relationships. Maybe it's a friendship that you know is constantly pulling you down, dragging you down, pulling you away from God, but you don't want to let go of it because you care about this person. If God is telling you to let go, then you got to let go. Maybe it's a dating relationship and you've become really comfortable in that dating relationship. It's a dating relationship that you're used to, you're comfortable with, but you know that this person is actually holding you back. This person is actually pulling you down, and God may be telling you right now, it's time to let go. It's going to be hard, it's going to be painful, but we have to let go of what God is telling us to let go of. Verse 2 and 3 of this passage of chapter 16, Samuel expresses some fear, right? God tells him it's time to let go. It's time to go anoint a new king. And what does Samuel say? He says, but God, if Saul hears about this, he'll kill me. I mean, he will literally kill me. But I want you to understand that God understands the struggle that we go through when we have to let go of something. And he's going to make a way so that you can let go. And that's what he does for Samuel here. He says, look, I know. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to have you go sacrifice. So take a heifer, go into the town of Bethlehem and make a sacrifice. And then while you're sacrificing, you're going to invite Samuel and his sons to join you. And then I'm going to have you anoint them king. You see, God makes a way. And some of you are in the middle of needing to let go, but you're so afraid, you don't know how. You're worried about the consequences, the repercussions. And God's saying, just trust me. Just step out and I'll make a way for this to take place. Which I think this is, and this is just a little side note, but I thought this was funny, that I believe God is not a God of the letter of the law, but he's a God that's about the spirit of the law. And sometimes in the church, we get so caught up in the letter of the law, don't we? I mean, that's how I grew up, right? The letter of the law. And we forget that the law is there because it's the spirit behind it. The law is there to protect us, to help us, to strengthen us. It's not there to destroy us and to tear us down. But in the church, we get caught up in the letter of the law and we use it to literally destroy people. So we need to be about the spirit of the law. So guys, if your wife asks you if that dress makes her look fat, you can tell her no, even if it does, okay? Just a little tip. Listen to what God is telling you to let go of. It's not going to be easy. It may be painful, it may be hard, but when God is saying it, you have to be willing to do it. Say, God, I'll let go. Number 2, second way to protect your heart is to learn to see through God's eyes. All right, I'm going to get in trouble for this one, but I don't care, so I'm going to do it anyways. I hope this doesn't offend any of you. It is very much applicable to what I'm talking about. But I went to college in the Midwest. All right, anybody from the Midwest in here? Okay, we got some Midwest people. All right, cool. So I went to college in the Midwest. I went to college in Missouri, all right? Springfield, Missouri, as I called it, misery, all right? That was always my joke. misery. I'm from Sacramento, so I wanted to go to school in Southern Cal, man. You know, I was thinking beach and ladies. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, I'm going to Southern Cal, and then God told me, no, you're going to go to the Midwest. I'm like, all right, I'll go to the Midwest. But here's what happened, right? So I get to, and you got to understand, like Bible college, we had a very small percentage of women at our Bible college. It was much higher percentage of men, which was good for the women, bad for the men, right? And so a very small percentage of women in relation to men. And we're in the Midwest, and it just, I got there and I was like, man, there's just not very, and don't take this the wrong way, but there just wasn't very many attractive women at my Bible college. And I was, you know, I had been down in Southern Cal at colleges where it was like 65, 70% women compared to men. And now I'm at a college that's like 70% men to 30% women. And it was a little like off-putting. I'm like, oh man, this is stuff. I need a wife, you know, like, and the pickings are slim up in here, all right? I'm just being real, okay? I'm sorry. That's just, you know, what from an outside perspective. As the semester went on, this small percentage of women started to get more attractive to me. No, I'm just being real. They started getting more attractive. And I'm like, well, okay, there's some good-looking girls here, right? And my friends started, a couple of my friends were like, Caleb, dude, you got to be careful, man. You got CBC goggles on. Like, that's what they would tell me. You got CBC goggles on, bro. You got to be careful. But you know what I realized? And I want to tell you guys right now. I did not marry my wife because she's the most beautiful woman in the world. I know, everybody chill out. Hold on. I did not marry my wife because she's the most beautiful woman in the world on the outside. I married my wife because of the person who she is. Now, obviously, I'm attracted to my wife. I mean, I would not have married my wife if I wasn't attracted to her physically as well. But here's the thing. It was her heart. It was her spirit. It was the person that she was that made her so attractive to me. My wife, okay. Wow, you guys are excited about that. And I realized, like my friends would joke, you got CBC goggles on. But I realized too that some of these girls at like my Bible college, and my wife didn't go to my Bible college, just so you guys know. She wanted me to tell you that actually. But some of these, I realized that it was because of who they were that started making me think, oh, they're attractive, right? That I started being attracted to them. And here's the thing, my wife, she meets with a lot of women from our church. You know what happens when she comes home every time? She goes on and on about how amazing you ladies are, about how special you are, about how gifted you are, about the passions that you have. That's why I married my wife, because of the way she honors people, because of the way she loves people, because of the way she sees people, and because of the way she treats people. That's why I married her. Like everything external is just a bonus. And so it really is. And so here's the thing. We see, right, in man, the way men see. Man looks at the outward appearance, but what does God look at? He looks at the heart. So we need to start seeing people the way God sees them. That's what we have to be as God's people. We have to start to see them the way God sees them. Because here's what I found. When I see with my eyes, I drive down the road and I just see a bunch of annoying people getting in my way, right? I'm downtown and I got, right, random homeless people hitting me up for money, asking me for this, asking me that. I'm like, you're annoying, leave me alone. That's what happens when I see with my eyes. But you know what I do every single morning? This is what I do every morning. I wake up and I say a prayer to God. I say, God, give me your eyes today. I pray that every morning. And when I pray that, I start to see people differently. And I start to treat people differently. And I start to love people differently. And I start to see people not as someone in my way or someone hindering me or someone holding me back from something or something wanting something from me, but I see them as a child of God. And I see them as a broken and hurting people. Often we're surrounded by broken, hurting people and they need someone to love them. We need to see with God's eyes. And that's what happens in this story, in this scripture, right? That Samuel looks and he's like, oh, well, this is the one. Right? He sees the first son. He's like, oh, it's definitely him. Tall, good looking, strong, powerful. He's definitely the king. Here we go. And God goes, nope, it's not him. He sees the next son. Oh, well, it's got to be this one. God says, nope, it's not him. And God says, look, stop. Man looks at the outward appearance, but I see straight to the heart. And we need to start asking God for his eyes. We need to start seeing people the way he sees them. 1 Corinthians 1:25 says, for the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. You know, God's weakest point, the greatest foolishness of God is going to be wiser than us. The greatest weakness of God is going to be stronger than us. And we just say, God, give me your eyes. Because what we see is the natural. What we see is the out. I mean, we live in a culture that's all about the external, isn't it? We're obsessed with it. We're obsessed with how we look to other people. We're obsessed with how we look in general. And I'm guilty of this, and you're all guilty of this, and we all fall into this trap. But we need to be a people who say, God, help me to see people the way you see them. That's what Samuel needed. That he would see people the way God sees them. Number 3, the third way to protect your heart is to let your worth be in what God thinks of you. Our worth can't be in how many likes or favorites we have on social media, right? It can't be in how many retweets we get. Can't be in how many times our picture gets liked on Instagram or whatever. It has to be only in how God sees us. It can't be about how many deals you close at work, how many A's you get in school. It can't be about any of that. It has to be about how God sees us, and God sees us as his children. He literally has placed his fingerprint on us, the Bible tells us. We are his children, and we have to let our worth be in what he thinks of us, not in what others think of us. And so I want to go to verse number 11, and I think this is pretty crazy and significant for us as we look at this. And the reality is, David's own father doubted him. And some of you are in this room and you understand this because you have serious issues like daddy issues or mommy issues because you had parents that doubted you. You had parents that looked down on you. You had parents that spoke down to you. And you can relate to this completely. But Samuel goes through all the sons, 7 sons. And none of them, God says, no, it's none of them. And so he finally says, are all your sons here? He asks him the question. Jesse, are all your sons here? And here's Jesse's response. There remains yet the youngest, but he is keeping the sheep. You see, Jesse just saw his youngest son as just a butt. I mean, he's just a shepherd. He's just a boy. It can't be him. I mean, can you imagine? The prophet comes and says, hey, I need all your sons present because I'm going to anoint one of them king. And Jesse says, oh, cool. And he brings them all but leaves one. He's like, it's got to be, because he's looking at his sons. It's got to be one of these 7. I mean, these are the cream of the crop. These are the studs, you know. They're good looking. They're tall. They're strong. These are them. It's got to be one of these 7. David, you just hang out. Keep doing your shepherd thing. You know, you don't need to worry about this. This doesn't really concern you. And this is how his father saw him. And yet Jesse says, no, is there any more? He says, yeah, but he's just a shepherd. And he says, bring him here at once. We're not going to go anywhere until you bring him here. Let your worth be in what God thinks of you, not what man thinks of you. I mean, his own father just says, I'm not even going to bother bringing him to this presentation because it can't be him. You see, it's not about your worth in man's eyes. It's about your willingness to follow God's plan. Are you willing to follow God's plan? That's all he's looking for. He looked straight to our heart, and he saw straight to David's heart, and he said, David is the one. David is the one. God saw his heart. He didn't care about the external stuff. He saw his heart. And listen to me right now, every one of you in here, your worth is not found in what your father has said about you, or your mother has said about you, or a friend has said about you, or some person told you. Your worth is found strictly in how God sees you. And he sees you as his child, as his creation, who he has a plan and a purpose for. God is most glorified through you when you are the most satisfied in him. And so today, I want to encourage you to be satisfied in God. Because when we're satisfied in him, he'll be glorified through our lives. It's not about how man sees you. It's not about the accolades you get from man. It's about what God has said and spoken over you. Your worth is in him and nothing else. Number 4. Told you I was going to be quick today. 5 ways to protect your heart. Number 4, the 4th way to protect your heart is to love the small beginnings that God gives you. Man, we often despise small beginnings. And I think it's a big mistake. I think it's a big mistake that we make today. Our worth and our value often is in the big things. But God has to start us somewhere. And we have to value and love and celebrate the small beginnings that God has in our lives. I've told our church this before, but it was a while ago. I started out, right, like in ministry, like church, doing church stuff. I had a small group, 5 junior high boys. And I would meet with them and disciple them and talk to them and preach to them every single week. They smelled like Axe body spray and BO, right? Because junior hires, they don't shower, they just spray more Axe body spray on them and they think they're good. Some of you have junior hires, you understand. But I met with these 5 junior hires every week and I would literally teach them, preach to them, spend time with them. At the same time, you know what my other job was? I was the custodian of the church. So I cleaned toilets, mop floors, scrub tables. This is what I did, right? On a weekly basis. This is how I started. And I remember being in that season and despising it at times. And thinking literally like, I'm too good for this. Like, they know who I am, right? I'm Caleb Cole, man. Y'all better back up. Like, I remember having this mentality. And some of you have been there. You're there right now, a lot of you. You're despising your small beginnings. You're ignoring even the small beginnings that you're at, and you're saying, I should be somewhere else. But I look back and I realize that my heart was changed and prepared for what I'm doing today in that time, in those small beginnings. Let me tell you something about one of those 5 junior hires. Of those 5 junior hires, I still am connected to a few of them. One of them got married last year. I'm like, dang, I'm old, right? Like, one of my junior high students got married. He is right now in the process of planting a church. Yeah, in the Midwest. And so I just want to tell you that to say you don't know what your small beginnings can become. And I didn't know that at that time. I was hanging out with 5 junior hires and that one of them was going to end up being a pastor and planting his own church. Who knows, this church may end up growing faster, being bigger than ours. I would love that. I would celebrate that. Too many people despise the season they're in. And when you despise your season, you detract from your season. And I found myself despising it at times, but at the same time, I said, God, you've placed me here, and he would humble me and say, yeah, Caleb, I know this isn't what you imagined for yourself, but guess what? I'm preparing you right now. And so I said, God, I'm going to maximize this season. So I would preach to those 5 junior hires like I was preaching to a room of 5,000, right? I discipled those junior hires like they were the most important people in the world. I cleaned those tables like it was the last table I would ever clean in my life, right? I unclogged those toilets like it was what I was born to do. Maximize whatever season God has placed you in. I don't know your season. I know some of you, you're in small beginnings. We got people from all different generations and demographics, but we have a predominantly younger church here at Project Church. And a lot of you are in the small beginning stages. And you've despised it, and you've been angry about it, and what's happened is you've actually detracted from your season. I want you to look at David. David was a shepherd. Can you imagine? I mean, this is small beginnings. He spends every day hanging out with like 100 sheep. Him and a bunch of dumb sheep. That was his life. Taking them to eat grass, taking them to drink water. Taking them to eat grass, taking them to drink water. Oh, there goes one running off. We got to get him, bring him back. But you know what David did during that time? He practiced his slingshot. He did. He was whipping rocks at trees, smacking trees. He was practicing his harp. He's hanging out with the sheep. What else am I going to do? I'll play the harp. David was like in touch with his feminine side, all right? He was cool. He was manly and feminine at the same time. He ripped apart a lion, the Bible says. When the lion tried to attack his sheep, he killed it. When a bear tried to attack his sheep, he killed it. You know what God was doing in that small starting season? That small beginning? God was preparing him to protect people. He was preparing him to lead people. Not only that, but he used that same slingshot to kill a giant. Some of you don't realize that the small beginnings that you're in right now are preparation to take down some giants in your life. and to take down some giants in this city, to take down some giants in this world. And you don't even realize it. So don't despise the small beginnings. Celebrate them and maximize them. I don't know what it looks like for you. It's different. It's a job. It's a relationship, right? It's school. I remember it. I was there. Don't despise it. Maximize it. Fifth and finally, this may be the quickest sermon I've ever preached in the history of Project Church. Fifth and finally, the fifth way to protect your heart is to lean on God's power. Lean on his power. You want to protect your heart? You got to lean on the one who came to save our hearts, to save our lives. Lean on God's power. So verse number 13. I'm going to read it one more time. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon David from that day forward. You know what's so cool is back then, the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit, it didn't rest on everyone. It only rested on the anointed one. So the only one that had the Spirit of God on him from that day forward was David. The Spirit of God was on David. But what's crazy is the Bible tells us, Jesus said, it's better that I go because one is coming that will dwell within each and every one of you and will endue you with power. So when we put our faith in Jesus, and I know some of you are from different backgrounds, you came in here, somebody invited you, a friend brought you, you may not have faith in Jesus yet. Maybe you haven't bought into this whole church thing yet. But let me tell you right now, we're glad you're here. But I want to tell you, when you know Jesus, the Spirit comes and dwells in you. And you have the power giver, and that power will protect your heart above all else. So we need to lean in to that power. We need to lean in to God's power and lean on God's power. David, he's filled with the Spirit to accomplish the call of God on his life, to be the king. The only way that you can fulfill whatever God is calling you to and leading you to in this life is to get connected with and lean on the Spirit of God that's in you. He'll lead you. He'll guide you. He'll protect you. He'll strengthen you. You know, my son Canaan, he's 3.5 now. And, you know, he's getting pretty independent and strong. And, you know, he does his own thing a lot. But I've noticed that whenever he's tired, guess who he leans on? He leans on Dad, right? We'll be out somewhere. He'll be, Dad, carry me. Right? You guys experience this that have kids. Dad, carry me. I'm like, dude, you're too big for me to carry. Dad, carry me. Would I ever say no to him if he's really asking me? Of course not. So I might say, you're too big. Dad, I'm so tired. My feet hurt. Carry me. Guess what I do? Right? All right, buddy, I got you. Pick him up, carry him around, throw him on my shoulders. I got you. That's what God does for us. He's saying, lean into me. Lean on me. When you're weak and broken and struggling, I'm here. Just trust me. The king, David, he's anointed. King of Israel. But you realize that where he was anointed, right? Were you guys paying attention when I read it? It says that he was anointed in the town of Bethlehem. It's a small town. 1,000 years later, another king is born in the city of Bethlehem. The King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. You see, 1,000 years later, a descendant of David is born in the same city named Jesus. Your heart determines your destiny. What are you doing to protect it? That's what I want to leave you with. Your heart will determine your destiny. What are you doing to protect that heart? You're here at church, so I'd say this is a good start. But we need to be a people that say, God, I'm going to lean on you. God, I want your eyes. God, I want to trust you. God, I want my worth to be found in you and you alone. God, I'm going to celebrate the small beginnings that you have in my life. God, I'm going to let go of what you tell me to let go of. I know you want to have a leader's heart. I know I do. I know you want to protect your heart. But here's what I would say to you today is you got to let the ultimate king into your heart. When you let him in, he'll take care of it. When you let him in, he's there when you're weak to say, can you carry me? And he'll lift you up. So I know there's people from all different backgrounds and you know, growing up in different ways, whether it's the church or unchurched or what. Maybe you came in here by accident today. Maybe somebody invited you, but I want to encourage you with this. If you haven't let the king in, invite him in. Let him wrap himself around your heart, because he'll lead you and guide you and protect you and take care of you. He came for you. Jesus came. He died on a cross so that he could take the sins of all of mankind, of you and I, every sin we've ever committed, he could take them onto himself so that we could be set free forever. So that our heart would be protected forever. Would you bow your heads with me across this place?